Oh, we got a fun fantasy football today for you on a Thursday. It's the start of Week 11, and we're excited. We're presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Speaking of legendary, we got the Hall of Famer, Dave Richard, here. We have the best in the business, Heath Cummings, here. We have everything you need to get your lineup set to help you dominate your fantasy league. So let's get started right away with the quarterbacks, because this is going to be a great week for quarterbacks, guys. I don't know about you. There's like 20 guys I feel comfortable starting. Geno Smith.
No.
Jacoby Brissett.
Maybe.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Actually,
Marcus
yeah.
Mariota. Joe Flacco.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
Jameis Winston. We got a lot of quarterbacks we can start this week. Let's show you the rankings 1 through 12. I don't think we'll see Jameis on that list, but Jameis is going to start for the Giants as long as Jackson Dart is still in the concussion protocol, which is still the case. But we are looking at some of the hopefully still top guys. You know, the Lamar Jackson's, he's going to be okay dealing with that knee injury. We got Josh Allen, who's going to hopefully bounce back from the tough loss for the Bills. But when we take a look at the list 1 through 12, we're talking about guys that hopefully will have some strong performances. And we get into some of the guys that we're a little bit concerned about how we're going to rank some of these players. And one particular player that is in the top 12, Heath, is for you, is Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think the upside that he's shown us in about half of his games this year is very exciting and hard to bench for some of the guys you see in that QB2 range. The guys we don't normally start, the Marcus Mariotas, the Jacoby Brissetts. At the same time, he's going up against Brian Flores' defense, which on occasion can just make a quarterback look like he has no idea how to play the position. So I think that he constantly is in that hard-to-rank range for me, but especially this week, I've got him just at the bottom of the top 12.
I'm with you on that. One guy who's not in our consensus top 12, but I'm nervous about, yet I think he's okay. And maybe you feel the same way. Like, I feel like there's like 4 or 5 quarterbacks that you feel okay about, but you know that there's like a floor that could bottom out. Heath always talks about a fantasy floor. It's Sam Darnold going up against the Rams. Now, they only have 1 sack in their last 2 games, so their pass rush pressure rate, it's gone down over the last 2 weeks. It's against Tyler Shuck and Mac Jones. So that lends some optimism. If he ends up having to throw, I could see Sam Darnold having an okay day, but I don't know if he could be better than most of the guys on this list right here, Jamie. Caleb Williams, I'm definitely starting ahead of him. Joe Flacco, I'm definitely starting ahead of him. Aaron Rodgers, I'm starting ahead of him. But Baker Mayfield's a question mark. Tua's not on this list, but I've got to decide between Tua and Sam Darnold in one of my leagues, and my head is spinning right now.
I go Tua. I'm concerned about Darnold. He has 9 games on the season. 5 of them he's been under 20 fantasy points, so he's been playing great. The fantasy production hasn't always been there. You mentioned the pressure rate for the Rams.
Yeah.
I mean, he's turned the ball over 6 times in the last 3 weeks, even while playing well. And so now we're talking about a Rams defense that, for the most part, has been good against opposing quarterbacks. There have been 3 times this season where a quarterback has gone over 20 fantasy points. Mac Jones did it twice. But I still think you're looking at Darnold as not someone that's going to crack this list, probably better suited for the next list. So somebody you're starting in 2 QB leagues and super flex formats. For me, the guy that I'm struggling with is Jordan Love, because the matchup's as good as you can get. You know, Giants have obviously been terrible against opposing quarterbacks. But he's just not been playing great right now. Now, we did get good news that Romeo Doubs is going to play. We'll find out if Matthew Golden's going to play as well. But I think just losing Tucker Kraft and coming off a loss and Matt LaFleur getting a lot of questions, easiest thing to sort of solve this problem for them is Josh Jacobs, and more Josh Jacobs, and sort of just say, okay, here, we can win with our defense, we can win with our run game. Maybe Jordan Love doesn't do very much, so he's somebody that I'm concerned about, which is why I think we all have him outside of the top 12. But you see some of the names on this list. You got Jared Goff in a tough matchup against the Eagles. Bo Nix obviously has been struggling, taking on a good Chiefs defense coming off a bye. So some of the names that you're used to seeing, just not going to be must-start quarterbacks for us. I don't know if you want to run to the waiver wire to replace them with a Tua Tagovailoa or Marcus Mariota, but those guys are in good spots facing each other based on how those defenses look. All right, let's talk about some quarterbacks we're going to start and we're going to sit. So, Heath, for you, you're starting Joe Flacco. Is it just a set it and forget it at this point? Because the last 3 weeks have been great, but the last 3 weeks have been at home. One of those was against the Steelers. He was awesome, averaging over 30 fantasy points per game. Is he just that easy to start this week?
I think as long as Joe Flacco has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, he's just that easy to start. The one thing you worry about with the Steelers' defense is they've really gotten back to pressuring the quarterback well on the edges. The one thing Joe Flacco's done since he got to Cincinnati is get the ball out of his hand. That's easier to do when you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins running routes. They're open pretty early. Under 2.5 seconds time to throw for Joe Flacco. That's not enough time for most defenses to get pressure. He throws the ball 40 times a game. I think we'll probably see that again in this game. I worry at 10 that I've got him too low.
I've got him at 7, and it's for the exact reasons that Heath pointed out. Volume is going to be in his favor. He's got 2 excellent wide receivers. I've got questions about the secondary for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's right about the pass rush, though. Flacco's not going to be able to sit there and wait 4 seconds and then throw downfield. That's not going to be available to him. But if he's going to throw 40 times, he's going to get over 300 yards. Those receivers are going to score. So Joe Flacco's a start for me.
Obviously, I don't disagree. Just to play devil's advocate, they just faced a team, the Steelers, that has a good quarterback with some great receivers, and they held Justin Herbert in check. The week before, they held Daniel Jones in check despite throwing 50 times, turned the ball over 5 times. We know Flacco could be turnover prone. And again, his worst game, for what it's worth, 22 points, was on the road. It was his first start. Last 3 games at home, much different scenario. And you know Pittsburgh coming off a loss in their building. No trepidation at all, though. You got him clearly as...
I'm not picking them to win the game, but I'm picking Joe Flacco to do a lot in the game. And it's all about stats. You know this. So I think Flacco will get a lot of good stats.
And you like the guy on the other side of the ball in Aaron Rodgers?
I do. I'm a little bit worried about how much he's going to have to throw, but I think he can be more efficient. And he's looking for a bounce-back game, and the Steelers are looking certainly to be more balanced offensively. That does worry me a little bit. But look at the track record of quarterbacks against Cincinnati this year. 6 of the last 8 quarterbacks they faced, at least 22 fantasy points. Rodgers himself had just over 30 fantasy points in the game that they played in week number 7. He's always better when he's not pressured. This Bengals pass rush can't get to anybody. So I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be okay. Low-end, top 12 type of fantasy QB.
No Trey Hendrickson again. Shamar Stewart's not going to play also, so there's an opportunity here for him to just sit back and throw.
Like, he's going to have 4 seconds.
The only thing is, like, you heard him coming off the game last week, we got to get Jaylen Warren more involved. He said it throughout the week. They try to get Jaylen Warren more involved. And you wonder do they just lean into their ground game a little bit more, that it takes away from Rodgers if the other side is not putting up as much points?
I mean, I think Rodgers is in a way tied to Flacco. Because if Flacco's bad, then you could see a 22 pass attempt game from Aaron Rodgers where they just hand it off to Jaylen Warren over and over and over again. But we don't think Flacco's going to be bad. As long as Joe Flacco leads the Bengals to more than 20 points, I think Rodgers has a good day.
Should be. I mean, again, it's set up for everything based on we've already seen this once play out, and both quarterbacks did great. Hopefully Rodgers does have one of his better games. Only 3 games this season over 20 fantasy points, but as Dave alluded to, the best game so far this season was that game against the Bengals. I'm hoping for a Justin Herbert bounce back. He's my start of the week for week number 11. Last week was miserable against the Steelers, but this is one of the best matchups on the table. The Jaguars number 3 in most fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. He was great prior to this with 4 games in a row with over 22 fantasy points, so I think he gets back on track. I love that Aranda Gadsden's playing because that was a little bit of a concern. Jaguars have just been absolutely miserable against opposing tight ends. He shouldn't have to worry about pressure here at all. They've just been bleeding fantasy points to the great Davis Mills, for example. Matthew Stafford without Puka Nacua threw 5 touchdowns against them. Like, this just should be a great game for Justin Herbert. So as you see, top 5 quarterback for me, top 8 for all of us. So hopefully Justin Herbert comes through. All right, let's go to the guys that were sitting. For me, I already said I'm sitting Sam Darnold. Heath, you're going with Baker Mayfield. Let's have this Baker Mayfield discussion for the 5th time today. So tell us why you're concerned about Mayfield.
The Buffalo Bills have not allowed a quarterback to score more than 16 fantasy points against them since week 1 when they faced Lamar Jackson. They faced some really bad quarterbacks in that stretch. They've also faced Drake May and Patrick Mahomes. Baker Mayfield has not been the same guy with both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out. Averaged 7.9 yards per attempt the first 6 weeks of the season. He was Baker Mayfield. That's about what he was last year. Just 5.6 yards per attempt in his last 3 games. I also don't think, at least the first half of this game, we're going to see a high-volume pass attack from Tampa Bay, because the way you beat this Bills defense is by running the ball. You have the 3rd most yards per carry amongst all defenses. So I think we see a lot of rush attempts, at least early. Maybe he saves your day in the 4th quarter with some garbage time. I think the Bills probably handle Tampa Bay pretty easily this week.
I'm okay with him as a low-end starter. I don't think this is going to be the typical 28-point Baker Mayfield game because of what he's talking about. And it does make sense for Tampa to at least try to attack with the ground game. And it feels like Sean Tucker would be the better option than Rachaad White just when it comes to carries, not playing overall. But I don't know if Sean Tucker can pull it off. This Bills secondary has been excellent. And their pass rush, it looks like they're getting healthy. I know the secondary was banged up last week. That's part of the reason why the Dolphins had such a good game. But really it was their run defense that was terrible. And Devon Achane had a huge game. If the Bucs lean into that, Heath's right. You're not going to have a great opportunity for Baker Mayfield to throw a lot. But I just don't think that that's what's going to be the end result. I think Josh Allen will get back on track. You want to talk about offenses not being on track last week. That was absolutely the reason why Buffalo lost. I think they get back on track. And I think that forces Baker Mayfield to throw a lot. And even if the yards per attempt is a little little low. I think he can end up having a pretty good day. I still like the receivers that he throws to. Ibuka, Tez Johnson. I think this is a Cade Otton week, too, attacking the middle of that defense. So I'm okay with Baker as a starter, but not the slam dunk must-start guy. I'd rather start both Rodgers and Flacco ahead of him.
And listen, I get it. I just look at what he's done so far this season, his body of work. Atlanta, New England, Philadelphia, Seattle, Houston. He's been good against all those teams, and in some cases on the road in their building, in the case of Houston and Seattle, and those are not easy opponents for him to have to take on. So I still trust him as a top 8 quarterback, but certainly if you think Flacco and Rodgers have more upside, obviously he thinks a lot of guys have more upside, so you can go that way with Baker Mayfield. Dave, one more guy that we're going to talk about here is Jared Goff, who's another player playing very well, has done well outdoors so far this season. The narrative not necessarily the same, but don't really love him this week again.
Some of those outdoor matchups were favorable for him. Some of those games away from Detroit were favorable for him. Now he's taking on Philadelphia, and this is an Eagles pass rush that's even more legit with Jalen Phillips coming after the quarterback. We saw that on Monday against Green Bay. I think that Lions offensive line's a little shaken up. It looks like all the starters will play, but man, are they going to have their hands full with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and now Jalen Phillips on top of that and whatever else that the Eagles have. Nolan Smith is going to get after him. This is tough for him, and when Goff is pressured, he's not good. When he's outdoors, it's not good. It's going to be cold. This isn't what the Lions are used to. I can't feel great about him, especially since Philadelphia. Under 23 fantasy points to 6 of the last 7 quarterbacks that they've gone up against. 4 of those guys have been under 19 fantasy points. I am nervous that it's going to be that kind of a game for Jared Goff, not a top 12 QB for me.
As you see, we're all on board. We don't love him as a top 12 guy. He has been a little bit better than expected, again, in these situations, and we'll see Dan Campbell calling plays. Does he have something lined up for Philadelphia, but the matchup's tough. And if you can get away from Jared Goff for Tua, for Rodgers, for Flacco, for even Marcus Mariota, might be the smart move to make. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We come back and get into some running backs, look at our rankings. Robert Turbin's going to join us, going to find out who we should be trading for, who we should be trading away. That's next here on Fantasy Football Today.